This happened about 6 months ago. I was 32 and had been a park ranger for several years. I spent most weekends hiking the less traveled trails, feeling at home among the trees and the quiet. But that day was different. I stumbled across a backpack. It lay half hidden among some bushes, the zipper open as if someone had left in a hurry. I felt a tightness in my chest. I looked around, thinking someone might be nearby. I tried to calm myself, reminding myself that people often lost things. I opened it up and found no ID, just a strange photo of something blurry. It was unsettling, but I didn't think much about it. Over the next week, I started hearing stories. A couple of hikers vanished along the same trail, just gone without a trace. Search parties were sent out, but no leads were found. It felt heavy in my stomach. I didn't want to admit it, but I felt uneasy every time I walked those trails. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I heard whispers. I thought maybe it was just the wind or my imagination, but I wasn't sure. The sounds pulled at the back of my mind, clawing at my nerves. I would catch myself peering into the dark trees, my heart racing. Then I saw things. Odd markers that weren't on any map. They looked like small stone piles, but they seemed arranged in patterns I couldn't understand. The more I looked, the more I felt like I was being watched. There were times I could swear I saw movement out of the corner of my eye. I would turn, but nothing would be there. Just the trees and that gray sky. One night I was the only ranger on duty. I stood at the edge of the woods, feeling the chill creep in. A flicker of movement caught my attention. I walked closer, breathing deeply to steady my nerves. That's when I saw the blurry figure from the photo, standing between the trees. My breath caught and I jolted backward. A trick of the light? I wasn't sure. Then I remembered the missing hikers. Had they seen something too? My mind raced. I needed to go back to the station and report what I'd found, but fear rooted me to the spot. I didn't move. Suddenly a whisper floated through the air, almost asking a question. I turned, heart pounding, and asked if anyone was there. Silence answered back. I felt cold. Something felt wrong in those woods. Something dark was lurking, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone. After that night, I couldn't bring myself to patrol those trails again. Each time I thought about it, that figure haunted me, and I felt a chill in my bones. And sometimes, just sometimes, I could still hear the whispers. What they meant, I still don't know. The next week, I tried to push it all aside. I focused on my other duties, cleaning the cabin and checking the equipment. But the whispers lingered in my mind. I decided to visit the ranger station's archives. Maybe I could find more information about the missing hikers or reports of strange occurrences. As I sifted through old files, I found a folder labeled Unexplained Disappearances. My heart raced as I flipped through news clippings and reports. The stories were eerily similar. Hikers gone, leaving no trace behind. Some of the reports dated back decades. Then I saw it. A mention of a local legend, a spirit that roamed these woods, known for luring people deeper into the forest with soft voices. They said it fed on fear. Earlier, I would have brushed it off as folklore, but I couldn't ignore the connection. I excused my rising anxiety, but the feeling nestled like a stone in my gut. That evening I felt restless. I needed to understand what was happening. I decided to visit the trail where I had found the backpack. Maybe I could find more clues. I grabbed a flashlight and my backpack, feeling both determined and terrified. As I walked into the familiar woods, the shadows grew darker. Each snap of a twig echoed like a warning. The air felt heavy, like something was pressing down on me. I reached the spot where I had seen the figure. I scanned the area, hoping for answers, but nothing seemed out of place. Then from behind a tree, I saw it again. The same blurry figure. This time it was closer, a shapeless mass that blended with the darkness. I froze, heart racing. I thought I must be imagining it, but the chilling sensation was unmistakable. The air buzzed with static energy, and then the whispers returned. They were clearer now, like a soft chant weaving through the trees. I tried to convince myself it was just the wind, but the voices pulled at my mind. "Help us," they seemed to say. My body tensed. I couldn't take another step forward. Another rustle and the figure lurched slightly. My instincts screamed for me to turn and run, but I couldn't tear my gaze away. Suddenly it moved again, darting behind the tree line. Adrenaline surged through me as I stumbled backward. I had to leave to get back to the safety of the ranger station. I turned in a rush, but tripped over a root and fell to the ground. As I scrambled to my feet, I noticed something on the ground beside me. A small stone, but it wasn't ordinary. It was carved, intricate patterns that looked familiar. I recalled the stone piles I'd seen before. I picked it up, hearing the whispers intensify around me. "Take it," they seemed to urge. "To." With my heart racing, I secured the stone in my pocket and sprinted back through the trees. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on my back, urging me to stop, to listen. But I couldn't. I had to get away. When I finally reached the station, I slammed the door shut, leaning against it, gasping for breath. The whispers faded, but the unease remained. I glanced down at my pocket, feeling the cool stone press against my skin. What did it mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that my discovery had opened something I wasn't prepared for. My mind raced with questions, and I knew that whatever evil lurked in those woods was still out there, waiting for me to return. The next morning I woke with a sense of dread hanging over me. A fog seemed to settle over my thoughts as I remembered the stone in my pocket. It felt heavier now, as if it contained something more than just carved rock. I wanted to ignore it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was on the brink of uncovering something significant. After breakfast, I decided to take a closer look at the stone. I spread it out on the table in the common area, studying the patterns. They were intricate, but it wasn't just art. There were symbols I recognized from the files at the archives. As I traced the lines with my fingertips, I felt a strange warmth radiate from it. Were these markings tied to the legend I'd read about? The spirit that fed on fear? Just then, the door swung open, and my coworker, Mike, stepped in. He looked disheveled, a stark contrast to the usual calm demeanor he maintained while on duty. "Did you hear them last night?" he asked, his voice low and serious. I hesitated, unsure how to respond. "You mean the whispers?" His brow furrowed. "Yeah, I thought it was just me. People think I'm crazy for believing in those stories, but I've heard things, strange things, every time I go up to the North Ridge." My heart raced. "What kind of things?" "Voices, like calling my name. And sometimes I feel like something's watching me," he admitted, his eyes darting to the stone still on the table. "You've been up there, right?" I nodded, recalling the eerie feeling that churned in my stomach the last time I was there. "I found something when I was out there," I confessed, my voice barely a whisper. He leaned in closer. "What did you find?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed, cutting through the tension. It was a news alert. Search and rescue underway for 2 hikers missing on North Ridge. My stomach dropped. Mike stood up straight, eyes wide. "That's where I was headed today. I need to go," he said, urgency creeping into his voice. "Mike, wait." I grabbed his arm before he could walk out. "What if those whispers have something to do with the disappearances? What if it leads you to them?" He hesitated, glancing back at the stone. "I can't ignore this. They might need help, but maybe we should look more into that rock first." We grabbed the stone and headed to the archives again, determined to find answers. And as we dug deeper into the records, a name caught my eye. Evelyn Hart, the last reported hiker from the Unexplained Disappearances folder. The date matched the last time the search teams were out on the North Ridge. "Wait a second," Mike said. "She was seen near the same area where I heard the whispers." Suddenly the air felt charged with a new urgency. I looked at him, my mind racing. "Do you think it's possible she's still out there?" "Maybe we're not searching in the right place," he replied, a look of determination crossing his face. As we gathered more information, I felt the weight of the stone shift in my pocket. It seemed to pulse with energy. I could sense it wasn't just a finding. It was a catalyst that might drive us into the very heart of the mystery. Before I could reconsider, I posed the question that gripped me with fear. "Do we go look for her?" But as Mike nodded resolutely, I couldn't shake the warning that nagged at me. What if whatever was out there was waiting for us too? I had a feeling we weren't just being drawn into the search. We were about to confront something much darker. And just then I heard it. A whisper trailing through the cabin behind us, a voice soft but chilling. "Help us." The whisper sent a chill down my spine. It felt too close, as if it wrapped around us like a fog. I looked at Mike, who appeared to be processing the voice. "Did you hear that?" I asked, unsure if I wanted him to confirm it. He nodded, his face pale. "We can't ignore this. What if it's connected to Evelyn?" The decision made itself. We grabbed the stone and headed out, the air outside crisp and heavy with anticipation. I could feel an invisible weight pulling us in the direction of the North Ridge. My instincts screamed that this could be dangerous. As we made our way into the woods, the sunlight struggled to break through the thick canopy. Shadows twisted unnaturally, making the setting feel almost alive. I glanced at Mike. He was scanning our surroundings, his mind racing with thoughts. "If the whispers are real," he said, "they might know things we don't." We hiked for what felt like hours, the trail uneven beneath our feet. The further we ventured, the quieter the world became. It was as though nature held its breath, waiting for something to happen. The chirping of birds faded, and every sound was amplified. Our footsteps echoed, twigs snapped underfoot, and the distant rustle of leaves unnerved me. I glanced at the stone. It felt warmer, almost vibrating in my pocket. When we finally reached the ridge, we stopped to catch our breath. The views were breathtaking, but I couldn't shake the dread pooling in my stomach. "Where should we start looking?" I asked, scanning the area. "Let's see if we can find any signs," Mike suggested. As I turned to follow him, something caught my eye. A flash of white, half hidden beneath some leaves. I knelt down, heart racing, and pulled back the foliage. My breath caught in my throat as my fingers brushed against what looked like a weathered backpack. "Mike, look!" I shouted. He rushed over, eyes wide as he recognized the backpack. "That's Evelyn's," he said, his voice heavy with disbelief. It was reported missing. Instinctively, I reached for the stone, feeling its warmth surge stronger as I held it in my palm. It was almost urging me to dig deeper, to uncover what lay beneath. What if it held the secret to finding her? Before I could act, something shifted in the air. The wind picked up, howling past us, sending shivers through my body. "Did you feel that?" I asked, glancing at Mike. He nodded, eyes locked onto the tree line. "Something's not right." And then I heard it again, the whisper clearer this time. "Help us, please." My heart raced. "It's coming from over there." I pointed toward a dense thicket. The stone in my hand felt like it was vibrating now, a call to action. "We have to go." "We shouldn't," Mike warned. But the urgency of the whisper propelled me forward. "Evelyn might be there," I insisted. I took a step toward the thicket, pushing past branches that clawed at my clothes. And then, everything went dark. The unmistakable sound of rustling leaves filled the air, but it wasn't just the wind. Whatever was out there was close. I could feel my pulse quicken as I squeezed the stone tight. This wasn't just a search anymore. It was a chase into the unknown, and I wasn't sure we would come back. "Mike," I called, but my voice sounded distant, swallowed by the shadows. Something shifted behind me, and I turned, breath hitching in my throat. I wasn't alone. I spun around, the darkness thickening. The air felt heavy, thick with an indescribable tension. I squinted, trying to make out shapes in the gloom. Shadows flickered, dancing in a way that made my skin crawl. "Mike!" I shouted again, panic clawing at my throat. "Here!" His response came from just behind me, but there was an urgency in his voice that made me turn quickly. I nearly stumbled as I saw him emerging from the thicket, his expression a mix of fear and bewilderment. "What was that?" he gasped, eyes wide. "I don't know," I admitted. The stone in my hand felt dangerously hot now, almost alive. Just then, a rustling sound made me freeze. It was coming from the thicket again, closer this time. I held my breath. "Maybe it's just an animal," Mike suggested, though the tremble in his voice betrayed his confidence. "We should go," I insisted, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I needed to know what lay in the darkness. Before I could change my mind, I took a step forward, the leaves crunching sharply underfoot. Mike followed reluctantly, eyes darting like a frightened rabbit. As we crept closer, the whisper returned, clearer, more desperate. "Help us, please. What does it want?" Mike's voice was barely a whisper as we moved through the dense brush. There was something almost pleading, almost human in that voice. Then I saw it. A figure barely illuminated, cloaked in shadows. It was hunched and trembling, swaying like it could barely stand. My heart plummeted. Was this someone in trouble or something else entirely? "Stay back," I warned Mike, fear knotting my stomach. "We need to be careful." As if sensing our presence, the figure turned abruptly. It wore a tattered jacket, dirt smeared across its face, but all I could see were hollow eyes staring back at us. My breath hitched. "Evelyn?" I spoke the name before I could process the thought. The figure seemed to twitch and a low moan escaped its lips. "Help us," it whimpered again, but its voice sounded wrong, distorted. It was as if several voices were merging into one. "Run!" I yelled, yanking on Mike's arm. We turned and bolted back toward the ridge, adrenaline pumping through my veins. I didn't dare look back. The branches lashed at us as we broke free of the thicket. We stumbled into the more open area of the ridge, gasping for breath. "What the hell was that?" Mike panted, eyes wild. I don't know," I stammered, the stone now cold against my skin, as if it had swallowed up all its heat in the chaos. "But we can't be the first to find this. We should have reported Evelyn's disappearance sooner." Mike nodded slowly, but his gaze was still locked on the dark woods behind us. We might not be alone anymore. The reality of that hit me like a punch to the gut. Just as I began to process the danger, a shrill scream erupted from the thicket, echoing off the empty trees. It wasn't human. "Let's get back to town," I said, urgency flooding my voice. But as we turned, another figure emerged from the shadows, blocking our path. And this one looked all too familiar. I froze. The figure before us was unmistakable. It was Evelyn, or at least it resembled her. Her face was gaunt, as if she hadn't eaten in days, and her clothes were torn beyond recognition. I remember the vibrant girl from the town, full of life and laughter. This was not her. "What do you want?" I shouted, trying to keep my voice steady despite the terror bubbling beneath the surface. "Help us," she repeated, but it sounded like a chorus of voices, layered and haunting. I felt a chill creep up my spine as she took a shuffling step toward us. "Don't get any closer," Mike warned, taking a half step back. "This isn't right," I muttered, my mind racing. "This isn't Evelyn. Something's wrong with her." "Then what is it?" Mike shot back, his voice laced with panic. "What do we do?" I glanced from Mike to the figure before us. Evelyn's hollow eyes searched mine, desperate and empty. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. "Wait!" Mike suddenly exclaimed, his eyes widening in realization. "What if it's not just her? What if other people are out there?" My heart sank. I hadn't thought of that. Could there be more missing people in the woods, drawn into whatever that thing was? The unnatural whisper filled the air again, coalescing into a single plea that echoed around us. "Help us. No one can leave." Without waiting for conscious thought, I grabbed Mike's arm and pulled him back toward the thicket we had just escaped. "We have to find a way out of here, now." Mike nodded, eyes darting around the perimeter as if expecting more figures to emerge from the dark. We sprinted back through the trees, the underbrush snapping violently beneath our feet. The whispers intensified, a chaotic symphony that clawed at my nerves. I didn't dare look back, but I could feel something, someone, watching. "Do you think we should go back to get help?" Mike's breath came in ragged gasps, his fear palpable. "No, not yet. We need to think first," I shot back, frustration bubbling over. "We can't risk leading them to more people. We need to know what this is." As we reached the clearing, the stone I clutched cooled against my palm, a reminder of the unknown weight we carried. I needed answers. I needed to understand what had happened to Evelyn, and why she had turned into this shadow before us. "Over there!" Mike pointed suddenly, his voice sharp with urgency. A flickering light appeared in the distance, moving erratically through the trees. "Is that a flashlight?" I whispered, squinting to see. "Maybe someone else knows what's going on. We should check it out." But as we hesitated, weighing the risk, the light flickered and vanished. My stomach dropped. "We need to go, now," I urged, adrenaline surging. We sprinted toward the last spot I saw it, only to find nothing but the darkness swallowing our hopes. That's when I heard it, a voice coming from the shadows behind us. "Help us! We're trapped!" And it definitely didn't sound like Evelyn. I turned slowly to face the direction of the voice, my breath catching in my throat. It shouldn't have been possible for anyone to be out here, not in this haunted stretch of woods. The voice was weak, barely above a whisper, yet it carried a weight that pulled at me. "Who's there?" I called out, trying to keep a firm grip on my trembling hands. Silence. Then the voice spoke again, clearer this time. "Help us, we can't move." "There's someone else," Mike whispered, his face pale. "We should go back, we can't be here." I hesitated. What if they're in trouble? What if they know what's happening? "Or it's a trap," Mike replied, fear lining his voice. "You heard the whispers." Before I could respond, the voice emerged again, desperate. "Please, we're scared. They won't let us go, hurry." It sounded just like a child. I felt my heart ache. How could I leave someone behind? I took a cautious step toward the darkness, eyes straining to see who was there. "Where are you?" I called out. "We'll help you." "There." Mike pointed to a shadowy figure lying on the ground. My heart raced as I approached. As I neared, I saw that it was indeed a young girl, her clothes torn and dirty, the skin around her eyes sunken and dull. "What happened?" I knelt beside her, scanning the area for any signs of danger. "Are there others with you?" "No time. They're coming." The girl's voice trembled, her gaze darting around. "You have to run." Before I could respond, I felt it, a rush of wind followed by a low rumble from deeper in the woods. The whispers intensified into a cacophony, surrounding us. I glanced back to Mike, who looked stricken with fear. "We can't stay here," I shouted. "What do we do?" The girl's face twisted in pain. "You have to get away. We don't belong here." "What do you mean?" I pressed, panic rising in my chest. "You can come with us." The shadows at the edge of the clearing shifted. Something was moving, creeping closer, undulating in the darkness. I grabbed Mike's arm. "We need to go." Just as we turned to run, the girl grasped my wrist, her little fingers gripping tightly. "You have to help us. They'll take you too," she screamed, her voice breaking. A loud snap echoed through the trees, and then I saw it. A massive shadow emerging from the darkness, creeping towards us with an unnatural speed. I ripped free from the girl's grasp, instinct overpowering all reason as I sprinted back toward the path we'd come from. "Mike, go now!" I didn't look back, but I could feel the presence behind us, chasing us. My lungs burned as I ran, urging my legs to propel me faster. Suddenly, we burst into another clearing, but I stopped short. The ground was littered with more shadows, old clothes, broken belongings, and something else, something that made my stomach churn. "Where are we?" Mike gasped beside me, the dread settling like a weight on my chest. Then everything went dark. The darkness enveloped us, almost tangible like a thick fog. I stood frozen, my senses alive and screaming for action. The air felt colder, and the whispers pressed in tightly around us, echoing through the void. "Mike!" I called, my voice trembling. There was no response. Panic surged like a jolt of electricity. I reached out, desperately trying to find him. My hands brushed against something hard and unyielding. It was a tree trunk, but it felt wrong, warped, like it was twisting in on itself. "Mike!" I shouted again, my breath coming in quick bursts. "Here!" His voice was faint, just out of reach. I followed it, my heart thumping in my chest. "I can't see you. His voice broke off, and I felt an overwhelming sense of dread settle in. I stumbled forward, feeling the ground uneven beneath my feet, each step a challenge against the rising darkness. I finally grasped his arm. Relief washed over me for only a moment before I heard it, a low, guttural growl resonating in the darkness. I felt Mike tense beside me. "What was that?" he breathed, his voice low and shaky. I don't know, I whispered back, trying to control the tremor. We need to find a way out of here. Suddenly, a flicker of light appeared in the distance, cutting through the black. My heart raced as I pulled Mike toward it. Look, maybe it's a way out. As we moved closer, the light swirled like a candle flame, illuminating disheveled shapes on the ground. I realized with horror that they weren't just belongings. They were remnants of people, faded photographs, bits of clothing, and even small trinkets, all strewn together in a chaotic mess. "This isn't right," Mike murmured, his voice thick with fear. "It looks like they were taken," I breathed, dread pooling in my stomach. But where to? Then the shadows shifted again, a surge of energy pulsing through the air. The whispers began to rise in volume, frantic, urgent, merging into one another until it felt like a chorus of despair. "Help us!" A chorus of voices echoed from somewhere within the dark, overlapping and blending into one maddening plea. "Please, we can't stay here," I shouted, feeling the terror grip my chest again. "Let's go back the other way," Mike suggested, but the shadows seemed to push us inward. "We can't go backward. We need to keep moving." That's when I saw it. Figures emerging from the darkness, surrounding the flickering light. They moved erratically, their shapes shifting beyond recognition. They were not children saved, but figures twisted and broken, their mouths moving but not producing any sound I could comprehend. More shadows crawled from the edges, spilling into the clearing. I grabbed Mike's hand, my grip tightening. We had to get away from them. "This way," I said, leading him deeper into the woods, away from the figures that seemed to dance just out of reach, their eyes glinting like stars, hollow and unfeeling. But just as we turned to flee, a burst of laughter pierced through the tension, a sound so chilling it froze me in place. "Found you," a voice sang, echoing around us, rising above the cacophony. I looked at Mike, realizing we were far from safe. My instincts screamed at me to run, but fear rooted me to the spot. Now they knew we were here. The laughter faded into a haunting silence, but I could feel its echo in my bones. My mind raced, darting from thought to thought as I scanned the darkness around us. "What do we do?" I whispered, my voice breaking the stillness. "Run," Mike said, determination flashing in his eyes. It ignited something within me, and I nodded. We took off, weaving through the trees, branches clawing at my arms. Each snap of a twig echoed like a gunshot in the quiet. "You think we're being followed?" Mike gasped, glancing back as we moved. "I don't know," I hissed, forcing my legs to pump faster. My heart hammered in my chest, drowning out every other sound except for the relentless whispers that seemed to swirl around us. "Just keep going." We dashed forward until the flickering light vanished behind us, swallowed by the darkness. I could barely see more than a few feet ahead, but I kept pushing onward. Suddenly, Mike stumbled and fell to the ground. "Get up," I urged, pulling him by the arm. "I can't," he groaned, wincing in pain. I squinted to see what was wrong. His ankle twisted at an odd angle, and I felt a pang of despair. "We can't stop. They'll find us." Panic surged as I glanced over my shoulder. I dropped to my knees and grabbed Mike's arm, ready to drag him if I had to. "I'll hold them off," he breathed, a wild look in his eyes. "Just go." "Don't you dare say that," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. If I lost him here, I would be alone. "We'll figure it out. Just stand." He gritted his teeth and put weight on his injured ankle, letting out a cry of pain. "I can't do it." That's when I saw it. A faint shimmer ahead of us, a brief glimpse of something silver, reflecting just enough light to catch my eye. I moved closer, squinting. "What is that?" "Just keep going," Mike said, clearly struggling. "But—" "Go," he urged again, fear lacing his voice. With urgency surging through me, I rushed toward the shimmer. As I drew nearer, I realized it was a piece of metal, half buried in the ground among the underbrush. I knelt and pulled it out. It was a compass, its needle spinning furiously as if caught in a chaotic dance. "What is it?" Mike called, straining to catch up with me. "It's a compass," I said, holding it up in the gloom. The needle flickered and jerked, a sign of something unnatural nearby. "Great," Now we're lost and have a fancy trinket, he sighed wearily. Not just a trinket, I replied, feeling the urgency build. If it's spinning like this, it means something is nearby, something strong. Like what? Mike's voice trembled as he edged closer. Something we need to avoid, I muttered. My mind raced to the figures I had seen, the twisted forms lurking in the shadows. Before I could explain further, a rustling erupted from behind us. The shadows stirred, slithering through the trees. I felt a chill creep down my spine. "Run!" I shouted, adrenaline coursing through me. We took off again. The compass clutched tightly in my palm. The ground beneath us shifted, the whispers turning into screams, filling the air with a growing sense of dread. We needed to escape whatever was hunting us. But how? "Do you smell that?" Mike's voice came strained. "I can't smell anything," I panted, trying to focus as the darkness pressed in on us. "Something is burning," he said, his tone growing more urgent. That's when everything went dark again. The laughter rang out once more, echoing through the trees as the ground trembled. I stumbled, feeling Mike's grip slip. "Mike!" I shouted into the dark, the panic rising in my throat. Then a hand grabbed me from behind, and my heart dropped. I recoiled, instinctively slipping from the grip of the unseen hand. The fear coursing through my veins made me react without thinking. The darkness enveloping me felt alive, almost mocking as shadows twisted around us. Desperation propelled me forward. "Where are you?" I yelled, my voice a small but frantic cry piercing the gloom. "Over here," Mike's voice called, but it was distant, like he was trapped on the other side of a thick wall. Panic surged through me as I fumbled blindly, my fingers brushing against the rough bark of a tree, the compass clutched tight in my palm. I steadied myself, trying to drown out the whispers that wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. "We need to stick together," I shouted, forcing strength into my voice as I forged ahead, calling for Mike again. Just when I thought I'd lost him forever, he emerged from the darkness, leaning against a tree. "I'm here," he gasped, visibly shaken but alive. Relief washed over me, momentarily dampening the fear prickling my skin. Then I saw the shadows shudder at the edges of our newfound light, coiling in closer. "Keep moving," I urged, grabbing his arm. "We need to find an exit." We stumbled forward, relying on instinct to direct our way. The whispers morphed, gaining an ominous clarity. "Stay with us, join us." The voices clawed at our minds, trying to lure us back into the dark embrace. But we pressed on, the memory of that shadowy figure lurking in my mind, a constant reminder that whatever was out there wasn't just a figment of our imagination. "Look," Mike pointed ahead, where a faint glow pierced the dense tree line. That could be a way out. As we approached, the glow expanded, revealing an unnerving sight. It was an old clearing, littered with remnants of past hikers, torn clothes, cracked hiking gear, even dilapidated backpacks, forgotten by time. The air buzzed with charged energy, pulsing at the edges of our awareness. "We shouldn't stop," I urged, scanning the clearing. "We need to keep moving." But as we stepped further into the clearing, the shadows surged forward, swelling around us. The compass in my hand began to spin out of control, the needle quaking with what felt like heightened urgency. "It's warning us," I cried, glancing around as the shapes began to form more closely. An orchestra of shadows creeping towards us. "We can't get trapped here," Mike yelled, pulling me back toward the edge of the clearing. But I felt rooted to the spot, compelled to look closer at the objects scattered around us. Among the chaos, I found something glinting, half buried in the dirt. "Hang on!" I reached for it, pulling free a silver ring. A wedding band, worn but glimmering unharmed. My heart sank further. Someone had left this behind. The whispers grew into a synchronized chant, rising to a fever pitch. "Help us! You belong to us now!" I felt the ground shake beneath us, a tremor rushing through the earth. "Run!" I shouted again, thrusting the ring back into my pocket and pulling Mike with me. We stumbled toward the edge of the clearing, desperate to escape the growing force behind us. But the shadows twisted and coiled, blocking our escape route. "They're closing in," Mike gasped, terror etched into his features. In a moment of sheer panic, I remembered the tales about the spirit of the woods, the one that fed on fear. Maybe if we fight back, I blurted out, unsure of how to challenge what was lurking. Focus. What do you want? I yelled into the darkness, my voice nearly drowned out by the crescendo of whispers. The shadows flickered at my words, but as soon as I thought I might have hit a chord, I felt the oppression grow. You cannot leave. You are ours. Driven by desperation, I held the compass tightly, its energy pulsing violently in my hand. No! I shouted. You won't take us! I grasped the wedding band in my pocket and threw it into the darkness, a decision made in the throes of fear. The shadows recoiled, briefly hesitating as the ring clattered to the ground, but they quickly reared back, surging toward us once more. But this time, I felt the static air around us spark with sudden energy. The whispers began to dissolve into anguished cries. Help us. Trapped. Each word felt like a spell, echoing through the trees. I turned to Mike, determination flashing in my eyes. We have to break their hold. How? He shouted back, urgent heartbreak flooding his voice. What do we have that they want? I glanced down at the compass, its needle finally starting to settle, pointing decisively to the edge of the clearing. Over there, I pointed. The way out. We raced toward the narrow opening between trees, the light shining in a steep decline. But as we turned, the voices swelled again, tugging at our consciousness. Stay with us. I felt an icy grip around my heart as we broke through the last set of trees into those blinding beams of light. For a moment, we paused at the threshold, the darkness whispering behind us like an angry storm. The shadows writhed as if they could sense our retreat, screeching out an unholy chorus. Do it now! Mike yelled, his eyes blazing with fear and defiance. We charged forward, not daring to look back. Just as I reached the edge, an overwhelming force collided with me, a shadowy tendril grasping for my ankle. I stumbled but managed to pull free, practically vaulting into the open. We fell into the sunlight, hit by a wave of heat and relief. The shadows screamed an inhuman wail, shocked by the sudden barrier of light. The whispers faded, leaving only the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Breathless, I turned to Mike, barely able to process what had just happened. Did we make it? But just as that thought settled, a nagging uncertainty burrowed deep into my mind. I glanced back toward the tree line, heart pounding. I watched as the shadows receded, slowly gathering their strength again, but they didn't cross into the light. Not yet. Maybe we should... Mike started, his voice trembling, but I shook my head. The danger had lessened, but it wasn't over. The whispers would linger, there would be others who wandered into that woods, and the shadow would remain ever watchful. I still think about it sometimes, I finally whispered, fear mixing with a sense of deep reflection. What if they're still looking for help? What if that spirit still waits in the woods? I turned away from the trees as we stumbled back towards safety, unsure of what we had truly escaped. But one thing was clear. Something dark had been catching more than just lost souls, and it wouldn't stop lying in wait. Would I ever find the truth? Or would the woods take their secrets to the grave, whispering its horrors to any who dared to listen? I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep moving. Behind me, I could almost hear them echo again, the whispers flickering at the edge of my thoughts, waiting for the next unwitting traveler.